Please listen very closely for the discount offered in this following episode. Patsy Delois Clark was a 55-year-old from Little Rock, Arkansas. She had 6 children and loved to bake. On March 7th, 1987, her ex-husband, who lived with Patsy, told their daughter that Patsy had left 3 days before in a taxi and did not return. She was never seen again. I'm Ed Densel, and this is Unfound. From the intro, you can probably already tell that this will not be an episode where multiple theories will abound, like Brian Schaefer's or Mara Murray's, although this mystery may not be as straightforward as you think. There will be no talk of social media and phones, like we had recently with Brandon Barron or going way back to Ashley Kohler. We don't have any video to analyze, like with Kyle Fleischman or Brandy Wells. Nope, no missing vehicles, like we have with Harry Milligan and Audrey Herron. Instead, believe it or not, we actually have a totally new topic that will get covered in the interview. However, this is a subject that I've mentioned before outside of an episode setting. Because in the disappearance of Patsy Clark, you're going to hear about what it's like when a person is working against his family to find out what happened to his mother. Why exactly is he the one and only? And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Linez's website, charleyproject.org. Patsy Clark got married to her high school sweetheart and became what was your average American housewife during that time. She kept the home in order while her husband went out into the workforce. Patsy had 6 children, 5 boys and 1 girl. She liked to bake. Patsy was known as being one of the sweetest people around. However, also like many wives of the time, Patsy suffered almost daily physical and mental abuse from her husband. Eventually, in the 1970s, this culminated in her shooting him. Yes, really. Then divorcing him, although the two continued to live under the same roof. Yes, really. And this situation endured until her disappearance in 1987. So, on March 7th, 1987, Patsy's ex-husband, Bill, showed up at their daughter's house, saying that Patsy had gotten into a cab 3 days before and never returned. He said he did not know where she was going. She was never seen again. Police did not react quickly to Patsy's disappearance, and despite no taxi driver remembering picking Patsy up, the police took Bill's version of events as fact when they finally talked to him. Others who knew Patsy thought differently, but what made alternate theories possible was that Bill never physically recovered from the shooting over 10 years before and would not have been able to dispose of Patsy on his own. Like I said in the intro, this is a common type of disappearance, although it doesn't seem to have a common type of potential resolution. But what I really want you to concentrate on is the family division that exists now, while you also try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, despite doctors saying otherwise, could Bill have been more capable than thought? Number 2, what could have happened so many years after Patsy shooting Bill? And number 3, are you open to the idea that Patsy's disappearance was more family related than ever could have been imagined at the time? Patsy's family is surprisingly very split on their theories of what happened to her. The guest for this episode is Patsy's son, Dave Clark. Unfound News. Dr. Telesco and I had another wonderful time on YouTube talking and educating all of you about disappearances. This time, using myself as the missing person, I explain step by step how investigations happen and what goes wrong. Next, I now have a discount running at my teachable course, How to Podcast Better Than Anyone. Anybody listening to this podcast will get a discount of 25% at howtopodcastbetterthananyone.teachable.com/courses by using the following discount code: Unfound132023. That's Unfound132023. This will be good until Tuesday, October 17th at noon Eastern Time. Finally, regarding the most recent Unfound Now, John Root Fitzpatrick has been found deceased. No cause of death has been revealed. His truck was located as well. However, Fang Jin is still missing. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the son of Patsy Clark, Dave Clark. Dave, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you so much, Ed. I really look forward to this opportunity to share Mom's case with you and everyone that's listening.
Excellent. And everyone should know that Dave was a very, very prominent person in the missing persons community in the state of Arkansas. For all of my non-United States listeners, it's kind of in the southern United States. He's a very prominent person. And we're going to be talking about some of the work that he is doing later after we talk about his mother's disappearance. So I appreciate you appearing, Dave. And I should say I've heard a lot about you, so it's finally good to have you on the podcast. Let's just start here. Of course, Patsy is your mother, but where did you, if you have siblings, maybe you want to talk a little bit about them. Where did you all grow up? What was the Clark house like growing up, whenever that was?
Well, we grew up in quite a few places, or maybe I should say we lived in a lot of places here in the state of Arkansas growing up. We spent a lot of time in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, which is south of Little Rock, about 40 miles. Okay. We eventually ended up in the Little Rock area, and that's where I have been for most of the time since. Growing up, there were 6 children, so had 5 other siblings. Wow! And life was not normal in a lot of other people's eyes, but it's all we knew. It's all I knew, and what was going on and how the household was run. You know, that's it's kind of the way it was. Six kids. That sounds like a pretty busy house. And maybe I should ask, where do you fall in the line there? Oldest, youngest, somewhere in the middle? Kind of in the middle. I am the fourth child of 6. Yeah. And I've got 2 older brothers. I've got 1 sister older than 2 younger brothers. Okay, so 1 girl and 5 boys.
Yes. Oh my goodness! How did your sister feel about that? Do you think? Wow.
She made out pretty well. I mean, she could take up for herself anytime and every time she needed to. Of course, you know, she probably would have loved to have had a sister, but she just had us guys. So.
She was very protected, I guess. You could 5 brothers. That is wow. Okay, I bet she did maybe wish that she had a sister. 5 boys, 1 girl. You're kind of in the middle. Okay, very interesting. So you moved around, and you said Pine Bluff. Of course, we've covered a disappearance in Pine Bluff. I think Clashendra Hall went missing from Pine Bluff. That's a disappearance maybe covered maybe in 2018, something like that. Her mother, Laurel, was the guest back then. Right. All right. So have your parents, 6 children, growing up there, moving around, finally settled eventually in Little Rock, and this is where your mother disappeared from. So let's move on to talking about your mother specifically. What could you say about her personality, her parenting style, her interests? What are some of those things? And, of course, she went missing in 1987.
Right.
I lost my mother to an autoimmune disease in 2018. So, when I hear her name or think about her, things that I think about. What do you think about first when you think about your mother, Patsy?
Well, as far as her personality, she was a very warm, loving mother.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she loved all of us children as one. I mean, she did the best she could, what she had to do, work with, and I mean, she was just, as far as I'm concerned, she was absolutely just a great mom.
Uh-huh.
She was a wonderful cook. Loved to spend time in the kitchen, and as far as her interests and things along that line, she was very craft oriented, and meaning she loved to make things.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of that has passed on. I believe in the genes of those that have come after her, myself and grandchildren. Love to make things, and I think it comes from her.
Interesting.
She was a very good, like I said, a very good cook. Loved to bake. Everything was from scratch, not boxed or canned stuff. But
no Duncan Hines for Patsy Clark. No Duncan Hines books for no.
I mean, strap on the aprons and let's go. That's the way it was at mom's in her kitchen.
Uh-huh.
Her parenting styles were. She was not a real strict mom. I mean, there were rules, of course, and should have been. And but she was very open and would spend time listening and having conversations with, and so she was just a loving mother.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very loving mother.
And this may come up a little bit later in our conversation. Did she have any brothers or sisters? Was she close to her family? Parents. What can you say a little bit maybe about her? I guess her biological family. Her parents, your grandparents. What can you say?
Yeah. Well, yes, she had typical household in her home growing up was father, mother, older sister, and an older brother. So there were three of the children in that household. She was the youngest, and her older brother was killed in 1966 in a situation in Chicago. Unfortunate situation, a robbery attempt. Shot.
Oh my goodness.
Her sister, older sister, lived here in Little Rock area for most all of her life and passed just a few years ago. So. Mom was the last one of the three children, but it was a good household. Loved my grandparents; they were very good people.
Yeah. What's your mother's maiden name? What was her maiden name?
Her maiden name, Ridens, Ridens, Ridens.
Interesting. Okay, I've not heard that last name before. Okay.
It's not a real common last name at all. There's not many around.
Okay. Yeah, kind of like my last name, Densel. I know the feeling. Right. Okay. So she grew up in Arkansas. Then I know, or maybe your brother died in Chicago, but her family, she grew up in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Most time now her father, my grandfather, was in the construction business, and that kind of is the reason why there was some moving about while growing up, not only with her and her family, but ours as well. They kind of followed where my grandfather's jobs were. If they were long-term jobs, construction, they would move there and then move back to the central part of the state. And eventually they did locate here in Arkansas, Little Rock area, and been here ever since.
Okay. Let's, of course, your father's going to be a topic of a lot of conversation in this discussion that we're having, but we'll just keep it simple for the moment. How did your parents meet?
They met in high school. School sweethearts, best I can figure. And I guess they did what high school sweethearts did,
Mm-hmm.
probably dated a pretty good while and made plans to get together after school and start that American dream. Now, I never had that conversation with either one of them. I'm just going out on a limb.
I see. That's
I'm
interesting.
assuming that's what it is. Yeah.
All right, so you don't. So they went to high school together, but you don't know a lot of the particulars of their dating and things.
No, I do not.
That's interesting. I'm kind of the same way. Yeah, with my parents, I really, I know kind of how they met, but I've really never asked my dad, who is still alive. That's interesting. Maybe we're kind of in the same boat on that, Dave. All right, so they went to high school together, and what year did they get married?
1950.
1950.
Soon after they graduated.
Okay. All right. And what did your father do? What can you say about his work? What was his occupation? Maybe tell the listeners a little bit about him just in general before we actually get into some of the problems of their marriage. What can you say about your father?
Well, after school, he got enlisted in the National Guard and was an aircraft mechanic.
Huh.
And the way I understand it is he was very talented in the mechanical world. And he did that until he got out, of course. And then his father-in-law, my grandfather, my mother's father, got him involved in the construction trade. And by the way, they were union pipe insulators, which meant they saw quite a bit of travel in the job sites. And pretty much they worked at paper mills and power plants and things along that line.
Okay.
Majority of their work scope.
Mm-hmm. What is that pipe insulation? Maybe for all of us who aren't into construction, what exactly is that?
Well, for say refrigerated lines, lines that need to be kept at a constant temperature.
Oh, I see.
Maybe a protective coating for particular applications, but it meant that they were and a lot of times they were at a high elevation, basically crawling about the beams of the building on scaffolding, ladders, whatever, wrapping, also applying asbestos. So they were subject to come in contact with that daily, which, as we know now, is not a good thing to be in contact with, but they were hands-on in that world back then.
Right, there's the kind of the insulation can be damaging to the lungs or something like that.
Absolutely.
Right,
Many passed away with what they call black lung.
Yes, I've read about this. Okay, all right, that does ring a bell. Kind of like asbestos and things like that.
Asbestosis.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. Okay, very good. Okay, and I should ask, your mother just working at home, raising the kids, or did she have like a job or even a part-time job, anything like that?
Pretty much she was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And, 6 children kept her busy.
I suppose so.
Yeah. So, but she was pretty much a stay-at-home mom trying to run the house and make it and keep it the best that it possibly can be. On occasion, she would bake and sell baked goods. Absolute best fried pie you've ever eaten in your life. Now, as far as going out and having a job outside the home, I do not recall her ever holding down a job outside of the home. Or creating craft items and selling those as well to make extra income. Maybe the monies were not coming in from my father's payroll like they needed to because of lack of work or whatever.
Yeah.
She was always willing to step in and help out.
Okay. And I should ask maybe a little bit more about your father's side of the family. Did he have any brothers, sisters that lived in the area, like where you grew up, or where they live elsewhere? What can you say about his family?
Yes, he had. There were 6 of them as well. Actually, 2 sets of twins
Wow.
in his family, which is very unusual.
It is.
He himself was a twin, not identical, but he was a twin. Then he had 2 sisters that were also twins, and then 2 other brothers. So they had a large household as well. My grandmother did the best she could to raise them pretty much by herself, even though she went blind at the age of 4, but she still stuck in there as a responsible, loving, caring mom, and did the best she could with those 6 children.
Wow.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, they pretty much lived here in the central Arkansas area as well.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Let's move on to this. And I know this is a very difficult topic to talk about, but we have to. We do these things on Unfound. Of course, we talk about all sorts of bad topics that the earth offers, between drugs and crime and, sex trafficking and all these things. I do have to ask you about domestic violence between your parents. As much as you want to say, what can you say? What did you see? And when was it maybe that first started registering you as a young man that, something was going on here that didn't seem right? What can you say about that?
Well, this is a very unfortunate part of life. And
Yeah.
One thing that I strongly advocate against, there's no place on earth for domestic violence. If you're having disagreement with an individual, your spouse, your partner, whatever, you've got no rights to lay a physical hand on.
Nope.
Either way, and that goes both ways.
Yep.
So get away from them, deal with the issue, and work through it, or just separate. But you don't have a right to physically beat on anybody.
Right.
So domestic violence is not okay with me, and that's something I really push and advocate against.
Right.
At an early age, very early age, I'm talking preschool, at the beginning of my school years, I started to notice the fussing and fighting, physical fighting, more coming from him being the aggressor toward her, and of course, it would basically make me and my siblings want to, of course, go out of the house. We didn't want to hear it. We didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
But we could tell, and I could personally tell, that it was something that was wrong, shouldn't happen. And many times I would see my mother with bloody nose, bloody lips, black eyes, teeth even being knocked out, and it's just a horrific thing to witness as a child, to watch your mother or your father, depending on the situation, being physically abused like that for in your mind, no apparent reason. Yeah. I mean, it's just like turning on a light switch and there it goes, here it comes.
Yeah.
And so this happened all the time. I mean, when my father was home, it was like walking on eggshells. You just never knew when things were going to explode. And of course, she was his target.
Yeah.
He lashed out and took everything out on her. And here's the thing: is they were legally married, and there's a thing called wedding vows that you take.
Yeah.
Most do, and she took those very seriously. In her heart and her mind, she was absolute 100% married to this high school sweetheart, but yet he acted as if there were no boundaries, there were no bindings on him. He could do what he wanted with you, who he wanted, where he wanted, how he wanted, as long as he wanted, and you don't dare question it, lest you want to reap the physical part of what he would dish out to you. And sometimes it would spill over to the children, and that wasn't fun at all.
The way you remember this, was this brought on, as we know, everybody knows I've never been married and things, so I don't have any,
Right.
experience with long-term relationships and things. But was this brought on by just his personality, or I know that sometimes like drinking can bring this on? The way you look back at it now, of course, you're a grown man, you look back at it now.
Yes.
What brought this on? What was it within your father that brought this on, you think? Now.
Well, that's still kind of puzzling in a way, because I do ponder on that exact thing. Trying to figure that out, and I will say this: I never one time saw him take a drink of alcohol, but I saw him drunk a lot.
Huh.
Now, figure that little mystery out. He was a very good at hiding his alcohol, but I did see him drunk a lot. And so was that part of it? I don't really know, but I do know he was intoxicated a lot. And when he was a violent person. It's unfortunate that sometimes alcohol affects us like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the opposite, where you're funny and goofy and loving. But in him, it was like absolute crazy water. And he was nutso, and he would beat on her every opportunity he got. But as far as what really caused it, I asked my grandmother, his mom.
Yeah.
I said, "What's the deal here? Why is he like he is?" And her response was this: "David, I raised a monster. I never corrected him. I never told him no. He always got his way, and nobody ever stopped him from doing what he wanted to do, when he wanted to do it, with who he wanted to do it, just like I said earlier, for as long as he wanted to do it." So basically, she said, I helped create him without stopping him from doing what he wanted to do and treating people the way he treated. Even her, he wasn't really good to her.
His own mother.
He did. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not saying he physically beat on her, but I'm just saying he wasn't really good to her.
Okay. What was your father's reputation outside of the home? Was he like that with other people, like at his job, his friends? Was he also, I don't know if he got in fights with his friends, but was he abusive that way? Or was this, as we know this happens, somebody who's Mr. Personality out in public, but behind the scenes is a complete monster? What would you say about your father on that?
Well, let me just share this with you, the listeners. His nickname at work with his co-workers was Wild Bill.
Wow.
That was actually painted on his hard hat, Wild Bill. So he was a rounder. I mean, he obviously loved to mix it up with the co-workers or anybody that didn't agree with or said anything contrary to what he thought. He's willing to go to blows with you. And he was just, I say this all the time. We do live in a world of monsters, and they are around us at all times, everywhere. And I totally believe that I did grow up in a house that had a monster in it. I really do.
We know, of course, this is 1950s into the 60s. I think domestic violence and abuse is a lot more of a, topic these days. And I'd like to think that we're all working on that. And we're not just talking about straight relationships. We're talking about homosexual relationships, all sorts of different relationships that, there are a lot more, places for people to go to get help and to get away, and women's shelters, things like that. But back then, did the police ever get called? Anybody ever call 911? Anybody, law enforcement ever step in? Any of that? Do you remember any of that?
Never happened. And here's why. He had everybody, and I'll start with Mom. he had mom believing, and I believe this today as well, based on what I witnessed. He had her believing, he had us believing that you go to the authorities, you report him, you're not going to like the outcome of when I get a hold of you, him being the one speaking. Many times he would beat on mom and beat her so severely that he would lock her in a rear bedroom and not let her out for days until the black eyes went away or the busted lip went down to where she could open her mouth and eat or drink, to where, where she could move about without moaning and groaning, which would reveal to somebody observing her that she's injured. There were not family members allowed to come over because if they came over, they may realize what kind of a household we live in and how violent it is. So he was a very dominant person in that regard. He kept that old saying, behind closed doors. Not many really knew what was going on, and after beating mom many times, every once in a while a window of opportunity would present itself for her to escape. And who wouldn't in their right mind, out of survival, for survival, flee and try to recover from the beating you just encountered?
Right.
And she would make a call back to the home, make contact with him and say, Billy, I'm here, I'm there, wherever. I'm going to need a little time to kind of heal up, a few days or whatever, and then I'll come back. And I can, says if I can hear him say it this morning, Patsy, if you don't get your blankety blank tail back in this household, these kids are going to start getting what you got. Well, now that's going to open a mom's eyes.
Yeah.
What's a loving mother going to do other than this is fly back into harm's way to protect her brood, her children. And as soon as she would cross the threshold back into that home, he'd lay into her. So, I mean, it was like the most horrific thing you ever witnessed in your life, of a fight, knockdown, drag out. And it was all aggression from him. Now, on occasion, she might throw something at him out of defense or whatever, or threaten him with something if he came at her again. But he didn't care. He feared no one. And so the aggression was always one-sided, coming from him to her. And as far as the police being called, no, didn't happen. And this was part of it, is you call the police, these kids are going to get it. Or you tell your mom and dad, these kids are going to get it. Plus he had them fearful, them being the relatives. Don't come over here sticking your nose in my business. Don't put yourself in a place that doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Take care of your household, I'll take care of mine. And that's the way he looked at it and the way he handled it. Nobody came over. Nobody crossed him. Now, he's a pretty good-sized guy, about 6'4", 5", about 275, strong as a bull. Meaner than a snake.
Yeah. Did it ever get to a point, though? Of course, we're talking about the kids. There was 5 boys, 1 girl. Did it ever get to a point, though, with all of you, that you grew old enough that, things kind of changed? You know what I mean? Where he, he was not, you weren't, 6 years old, and, but you're 17, which, is different. And he had to, he maybe backed off or something on all of the kids.
Well, I look back on that today, and I wonder why the 2 older brothers, they were strong enough, they were big enough, they could have made a difference, and I'm not blaming them for what he did.
No, it's all on your father, surely. Yes.
I do not recall ever seeing them, witnessing them intervening on mom's behalf at all. Now, I think that kind of is normal, that most kids kind of fear the father figure, especially if they're violent. I mean, they don't want to test those waters. So when it starts in, most everybody flees for their life, if you will. The kids run out of the house. But I do know at the age of 14, he and I finally physically tied up, if you will.
Wow.
And it was over something just absolutely crazy. He was intoxicated, sitting in the living room as I was heading out on a Friday afternoon with me and my buddies. His question was this: "Where are you going?" Well, me and my friends are going out running around for a little bit. Do you need some money? No, I don't need any money. I've got my own money. Oh, you're too good for my money. No, that's not what I said. I've got my own money. Listen, from the age of 6 years old, when I finally first realized that, hey, every Coke bottle that I walk past is worth at least a nickel. Mm-hmm. That's free money. So I've always been one to, and I'm not bragging, I've always been one to kind of figure out how to make my own money. So at this particular time, I had pretty much a full-time job as a kid, working at a Holiday Inn in South Little Rock as a porter. I was making good money for a kid of my age. So, no, I've got my own money, thank you. Oh, you're too good for my money. Like I said, no, I'm not too good for your money. Well, he got up and he grabbed me and he shook me. Well, I pushed away from him. He grabbed me again and he backhanded me. Well, I hauled off and hit him right in the nose. Wow. And broke his glasses, and we got into it. Of course, he outweighed me about 100 pounds and was nearly a foot and a half taller than I was. So, we struggled there for a while, and yes, he got the best of me. He should have. I mean, look at the size difference, the strength difference. But his co-workers knew, and I'll say this, and I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you facts. His co-workers knew that he'd been in a fight with somebody, finally. Mm-hmm. But they didn't pressure him on who and why and all that, because he told them just back the H off, mm-hmm. and don't question him. But as far as I know, that's pretty much the only fight between me or any siblings with him. The rest of them just avoided him with all efforts, because they didn't want to cross him. But
was this a situation where all of your brothers and your sister could not, once they became old enough, couldn't wait to get out of that house because of what was going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was like, come on, certain age, let me get out of here, provide me the opportunities to move out. The older brother moved out and got married at a young age. The next to the oldest one kind of followed suit. And then the next one to leave the nest or the home was myself. When I left, there was the older sister and two younger brothers there. Mm-hmm. But listen, it was, and the way I looked at life at that time was this: everybody for themselves. Yeah. The ship is going down. Fend for yourself and do what you have to do in order to survive. And that's my attitude. I didn't mean anything derogatory by it, by leaving any siblings there. I mean, I wasn't the father. I was a child of the home. I was a sibling to the rest of them. Mm-hmm. So was it my responsibility to gather all the others up and take them with me? Well, I'm just, when I left home, I was still young. I was still a teenager. Right. But the day that we had the fight, I told him, I said, I'm going to tell you right now, the first opportunity I get, I will leave this home and I will never return. Well, he said, good, do what you got to do. And it was not long that opportunity presented itself, and I did leave. Okay.
Let's now move up to, all right, so we've got a very clear picture of what was going on in the Clark house, I guess 50s and the 1960s. But eventually, I have to ask you about this. She ended up actually shooting him, correct? She actually ended up shooting him. Please explain, of course, you were not there when it happened, but please explain your understanding of what happened. Maybe your mother told you about what happened later, but what is your understanding of how this all happened, and what year was this?
Okay. Let me add a little bit to what I was just sharing, and that is regarding this domestic violence.
Yes.
I will say this about my father is pretty much everybody feared him. Nobody questioned him, and he had this understanding that if you call law enforcement, you're going to reap the it's not benefits, but you're going to reap what he dishes out to you.
Right.
So, unfortunately, back then we lived in a very male chauvinistic world where the women, listen, you get married, you get in the kitchen, you have babies, you keep the house, keep your mouth shut, you do what you're told, when you're told, and how you're told. And that's kind of the way he looked at life. Okay, Mom was to do just those few things in life, and that's it. Well, it's unfortunate, but the system kind of operated that way, and the local law enforcement was never involved. Okay, because of that right there. You call them, you contact them, you're gonna get it.
Right.
So nobody opened their mouth. So a victim of domestic violence over a period of time after some severe domestic violence, day in, day out, same old beatings, physical abuse, psychological, emotional, all the types of abuse you can imagine. And so severe that they reach a point of wondering, when is it ever going to stop? What do I have to do to make it stop? Well, everything Mom tried didn't work. Meaning, maybe I'll dress a little nicer tomorrow. He'll change. Maybe I'll cook his favorite meal and he'll change. Maybe I'll keep the house cleaner and he'll change. Maybe I'll just speak in a loving way to him and he'll change. He'll treat me different. Well, that never happened.
No, it doesn't work.
She could do all of that, and it was always the same beating day in, day out. So they reach a point that they've got to figure out a method or a way to escape. And they see one of two ways. Either the aggressor is going to kill the victim, or the victim is going to be pushed to a point of no return and kill the aggressor.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way that they can see it ever stopping, because of the volatility, the violence. It's just unbelievable what it was like in our household. Now, one Friday afternoon in high school, she came to me, she being my mother, said, "David, I would like to borrow your truck." Well, no, that didn't go over good. I'm not going to let you borrow my truck because, it's my truck. It's my mode of operation, means of travel. I've got to go to work this afternoon. But she kept on and on. Finally, she says, "Let me borrow your truck, please. I'll be back this afternoon." I said, "Well, where are you going?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to go pick your father up and surprise him. That way he doesn't have to ride all the way home from South Arkansas with his co-workers like he does every week." So after thinking about it, I finally gave in. I said, "Okay, fine, but you've got to be back here by 3 o'clock because I've got to go to work." I'll be back, she told me. And I believed her that she had the intention of being back with him at that point in time when she told me. But unfortunately, she didn't make it back. I missed work. And so there we are at home. And a Pulaski County Sheriff's officer rolls up in the driveway, knocks on the door, we answer the door, and he says there's been a horrible situation that took place, that my mother had shot my father. Well, this is hard to really wrap your mind around as a teenager, but today it makes sense. I mean, my gosh, you push and push and beat on somebody. You're going you back a wild animal into a corner. I guarantee they're going to get you. You reach in there and grab them, they're going to bite you. And it's just a matter of time. You keep beating on somebody, you drive them to these points in life where, how am I going to get out of this? And so it happened. He's driving my truck. They're in and around Star City, Arkansas. And I don't know what was going on inside the truck. Nobody does.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely nobody today knows what was going on.
Right.
Now, because I know him and I know what he used to do and what he was capable of doing, listen, I've been sitting between the two of them in our 1957 DeSoto, and him backhand her. Now, I'm sitting in the middle of the seat. He's driving. She's in the passenger seat. The other siblings are in the back seat. Now, and he backhands her for no apparent reason, just backhands her. Maybe he didn't like the way she was looking out the window. Maybe he didn't like the fact that the sun was shining. Who knows what was going on in his mind? But he backhanded her this one particular time, and his elbow hit me in the face, and his closed fist backhanded her, broke her nose, and splattered blood all over the inside of the DeSoto. And then she opened the door and fell out in the street. So that could have been going on in my truck. I don't know.
Okay.
I just don't know. So anyway, she pulls out a .38 pistol and unloads it in him. Now, he loses control of my truck, runs off the road and crashes. Passerby stopped. She gets out, says, call an ambulance. I just shot my husband. So that happened in and around the first part of September of 1975. And one thing we've not talked about, Ed, is the fact that in 1974, she legally divorced him.
Right.
And threatened to leave him. But they just had this relationship that was, the way I put it, is a love-hate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Can't live with each other, and they can't live apart,
Right. And it's something that's the kind of thing maybe we're much more aware of today than we were back then. These kind of toxic relationships that, right, there's so much emotion going on that two people who cause violence to each other can't leave each other.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And of course, they picked him up in the ambulance and rushed him to hospital in Pine Bluff. He lived. He didn't die.
Wow.
They resuscitated him a couple of times. I think he was in such bad shape that he did. Technically he passed, but they brought him back twice.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, he was a mess. Lost one of his lungs. He had both his kidneys shut down on him. His intestines were ripped to shreds, and he had a colostomy bag. He couldn't hear. One of the bullets had nicked a nerve and caused him to go deaf somewhat. And so he was a mess. And
wow.
He was in the hospital for around 6 months, best if I can recall, and trying to recuperate and get back to some point of well-being where he could be discharged.
Mm-hmm. What? Any charges brought against your mother because of that?
Well, not really. She was, of course, taken into custody, and they put her through a lot of evaluations to try to figure out her mental state. Was she aware of what she did to him? Was she not really capable of fully understanding the magnitude of what she did? What would have pushed anybody or her to do this? And so she went through a series of evaluations within the state hospital system, and one doctor ruled that she was, at this particular time that it happened, suffered from a form of insanity, and
Wow.
had her sent for more diagnosis with other specialists here in Little Rock, so they could really kind of figure out the situation and what was causing this. Well, after a period of time and being put back on some medications, she was able to get through the evaluations, and they deemed that she's fit, she's capable, she understands everything, and was it just a period of insanity that, based on whatever was going on at that moment, triggered this? Was it premeditated? We don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
We know what happened. We know what events, not necessarily that day, but we know what events led up to this building ever since 1950.
Right.
You can only take so much. I've never been there in that situation physically. I've never been on the receiving end of it like she was, but I cannot imagine what that could do to a person from head to toe, mentally, psychologically, everything. There's got to be a breaking point or a jumping off point, in my opinion. And like I said, what was he doing? What did he do something to her while they were driving that provoked it? Was she just carrying that weapon for protection in the event? And did something happen? Based on what I know and what I witnessed, I would say that yes, he provoked something.
Did it come out during, of course, he's in the hospital, did it come out finally that she had been suffering from domestic, we were going to get to how they were actually divorced at this time, but did it eventually come out that she had been being abused all those years, in the investigation and all that?
Not so much that you would think or hope. And it's very, very puzzling that it never really came out and was entered into the system that, hey, look, he's been beating the mess out of this lady forever and a day. He brought this on himself. Nothing like that's ever in the system. He's got no record in the system as a abuser at all. And what I think is because she eventually was allowed to come home when he came home as well. And I believe that she was to the point she was going to. And he somehow, there was never really any charges, official charges brought against her. Now, there was some documentation that was created in the system, but it kind of went away.
Huh.
That's very puzzling and curious why it went away. Why she didn't face charges? Well, it leads me to believe that I think he recanted any possibilities of letting the system charge her with attempted murder.
Wow.
And because out of fear that she's going to spill the beans, if you will, and the world's going to know what W.J. Clark was and what he was like. And he didn't want that to go forth. He didn't want anybody to know his secrets behind closed doors.
All right. So, did you ever have a chance after this happened, you find out about all this, did you ever, in the aftermath of this in 1975, I guess, did you ever talk to your mother about this and what she had to say about that? Did you ever talk to her one-on-one about this?
Yes, I'm sure I did. Best of my recollection, when she came home and then he came home. This was very bizarre to see this happening.
Mm-hmm.
He is and I described him earlier, about 275, 6'4", 6'5", strong as an ox, meaner than a snake. And all of a sudden, here comes this little skeleton wrapped in skin in a wheelchair, colostomy bag, IVs. I mean, he's pathetic. pathetic.
Yeah.
Okay? And here she's sent home to take care of him. That's basically what she was sentenced to do. You go home and you, according to the judge, you go home and straighten up the mess you created talking to her. Well, it's not really that she created it. He did. And but a conversation with her, we never really got into it. I can only imagine why it happened, based on what I've witnessed all those years leading up to it. He always, even when he got better, where he could communicate and hear, he always played it down like it was no big deal. You know, maybe just about got shot and died, and it's no big deal. Well,
okay.
That's it.
Okay.
That's an arrogant attitude he had. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna come back to that, but we need to now just go back a little bit. The divorce. I mean, I given the way you've all described it, I know you're telling the truth 100%. It's hard to imagine that your mother got to the point where a divorce could happen, and that your father would grant it. I mean, how did that even come about? How was that even possible? I guess what I'm saying is that she even brought it up. I'm surprised that he didn't kill her, given that this divorce, she wanted to get a divorce. Maybe you can explain that.
Yeah. Well, as long as they kept it back, a lot of people were not ever aware that they were divorced. That was one of the conditions. It's got to be kept quiet. And because for him to get divorced, in his eyes, meant he failed. And
right.
Everybody else's. He didn't want that. See, he was the king of the world, so to speak. And for him to be divorced by his wife, that means, I'm not as, in everybody's eyes, I'm not as good as they think I am. But we're going to get divorced and we're going to live together. And that was their agreement. But Mom never would leave. And many a times I would ask her, why don't you just leave? Why don't you leave? Well, we don't have any, and she'll say this, we don't have anywhere else to go. We, her, us, we. So, had she not had children, she probably would have left him early on. But the fact that there were 6 of us kept her pretty much at the home.
Okay. So at some point, I guess she brought it up again about getting divorced, and your father was like, yeah, we can do that as long as nobody knows and you never leave.
Right. Yeah, we'll just carry on like we have been, maintain a household, you keep house, I'll work, and nobody will know the difference. So that's pretty much it on concerning that. It's just bizarre that she went along with it, but she did.
Okay. After she shoots him, and then bizarrely, the shooter is the one who has to take care of the victim at home. Of course, you were not living at home at the time. Maybe none of the children were living at home at the time. By the time the mid-late 70s rolled around, did the abuse continue?
It continued in a different way. It was more verbal than physical, because he just was not the physical individual he was prior to the shooting. But old saying, leopard never changed their spots. I mean, he's still the same old mean monster inside. He's just he just can't get up and do what he used to do. But he's still mentally, he's still thinking and talking and spewing the same venom toward her that he always did.
Okay. How often getting into you of course you moved out as soon as you could. It sounds like your other siblings did as well. How often come around the late 70s, and of course we're going to get up here to 1987 fairly quickly here, but getting into the late 70s, early 80s, what kind of contact did you and your siblings have with your parents? Of course, they're divorced, but they're still living together. As you said, maybe the verbal abuse, mental, emotional abuse is continuing. I mean, were you getting together for like Christmas, like the 4th of July? I mean, what was going on late 70s, early 80s between all of you?
There was not much going on at all. I left home in and around 77 and never looked back pretty much, which, like I said earlier, left a sister and 2 younger brothers there.
Right.
And as far as family get-togethers or things like they didn't happen.
Didn't
It
happen.
just wasn't allowed. And I mean, Mom tried to do what she could.
Right.
I do remember Christmas holidays. She tried to make the best of it. But you know, sometimes it takes money to do things, and if someone doesn't give you money, meaning the spouse, then you can't really do much. So it handicaps the whole situation. And so a lot of what most people know as normal wasn't really the case in our home. And nobody really wanted to go into that home once they left because they knew what was in there. They knew what happens. And, you know, after all those years of encountering and going through all the abuse that took place directed toward Mom, I sure didn't want to go back in and see or, you know, be a part of it. So, you know, I leave. The other 2 brothers are already gone and setting up their lives. And so the sister eventually moves out, and along with one of the brothers, and the other brother finally moves out on his own, and we're all gone. Yeah. So
just the 2 of them, just your mother and father. Then after all this, home alone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so who knows what really took place in there? I think she was kind of growing her wings, if you will, and was able to get out and about and get away from him, especially since he was not physically the same monster he used to be. So her having a car, she could come and go as she wanted or needed to, and didn't have to, you know, get permission to do whatever. She would just do it. But life still wasn't good.
No.
You know, she still, for some crazy reason, still just wouldn't leave him.
What kind of conversations, if you can say, were you having with your other siblings regarding that situation? Once again, once most of you are moved out, you're all adults, having your own lives. I mean, how much did the conversation about your mother and father come up, if you can say?
It didn't really come up a whole lot, other than like if I would make a call to one of them, have you seen Mom? Talk to Mom. How's Mom doing? Because there, as far as making a direct call into the home to talk to her, rarely did they have a phone in the home, and I think my father did that on purpose.
Yeah.
There's no way to call for help, so. We kind of communicated about her to each other on occasion, not real frequently, and because I knew she was just unwilling to leave him. So maybe there was a point in time where there was frustration that I wish she would leave him, but I wish she would leave him, but she never would, and. You know, I got frustrated at the situation.
Yeah.
And I just never could figure out why. I mean, why would anybody want to stay with somebody like that? And, you know, I made many offers to her to financially move her wherever she wanted to go, but she always would come back and say, well, no, I married your daddy. I'm his wife. Well, he doesn't treat you like his wife.
Yeah. Right.
So.
Okay. All right. Wow. Okay. So now we're up into the late 70s and into the 80s. You're all moved out, but those 2 are still together. Now, the way you look at, you know, moving up to 1987, the way, of course, the day of the disappearance is March. Your, as best as you can tell, was like 1986 into 1987 any worse for the two of them than any other year? Were there any changes going on? Or was it just kind of the same thing that had been going on that whole time when we get up closer to the disappearance date?
Well, at the time, around that time in '86, actually, I lived in Fayetteville, Arkansas, northwest part of the state, around 1980 to about 92, somewhere thereabouts. Didn't have much of any contact with her because there were no home phones.
Mm-hmm.
And only time we would have conversation would be if she called me on a payphone collect, which was rare, and so as best I can remember, things were about the same. They never really changed. They just kind of continued on, the two of them. And Halloween night, 1986.
Okay.
She shows up unannounced at my home in Fayetteville late. Now, I mean, no call, no letters, hey, I'm coming, or anything like that. Just all of a sudden, I get a call from home. Now, I was a milkman at the time, and I was out running my early route, and I went to work at 11:30 at night, and I get a call not far from that time. I hadn't been out long working that night, and hey, your mom's here. And I said, what? Yeah. Wife said, your mom's here. I said, well, this is wild. And she said, well, she's in the hospital also. Wait a minute. So you got, now she's here, but she's in the hospital. What? You're going to explain that.
Yeah.
Turns out she shows up unannounced in Fayetteville. She shows up unannounced, and instead of calling and saying, hey, would y'all come give me a ride? I'm here to visit or whatever. She's walking down the road. We lived about a mile from the bus stop. And anybody that's familiar with Fayetteville, Arkansas, there's a street up there called Dixon Street. Now, Dixon Street is full of restaurants, bars, and establishments that serve a lot of alcohol. I'm not saying anything negative. I'm just telling you kind of what was up and down that street.
All right.
Well, there happened to be an individual that was on Dixon Street and was intoxicated, decided to drink and drive, and he hit my mom as he was driving down the road.
Wow.
Fled the scene, and she was in pretty bad shape. Broken leg, cracked ribs, broken pelvis.
Oh, my.
I mean, really messed up. So after a period of time in the hospital, she's released. She comes to my home to heal up and recuperate. And she's there from October up until early first couple of weeks of December. And when she gets physically released from her doctor's care, she wants to come back to Little Rock. Okay, against my wishes. I can't stop her. I can't keep her up there. She's a grown woman. She can do what she wants. So now imagine this. The person, she's about 160 pounds. She's not a real strong person, about 5'3", and she's on crutches in a walking cast or a walking boot. And it took a pretty good while just to get her on the bus. I had to stand behind her and help her navigate the steps up into the bus. The bus driver had to help her safely come on board and then get her to her seat. So it caused a commotion. It drew attention.
Yeah.
Everybody noticed she was getting on board. So, and this will come up in a little while in our conversation.
Okay.
But that was the last time that I actually saw or spoke to my mother, and that was December 12th of 1986, Fayetteville, Arkansas, while she was boarding a Greyhound bus en route back to Little Rock.
Wow. I see. Wow. And so she doesn't, of course, the official disappearance date, at least according to the records, public records, is March 4th, 1987. So we're talking 3 months
Yep.
of no contact, no letters, no calls, no face-to-face contact.
No, not with her at all. Now, I had communicated with siblings, and yes, she made it, and they were interacting, not real frequently, but on occasion they would see each other, have conversations or whatever.
Right, maybe I should ask you that. Would you, your impression from late 86 into 87, was there another sibling of yours that maybe kept more tabs, more contact with your mother and father than you did? Or would you say that you were all about the same?
No, they did have more contact.
They did.
Because I was in the northwest part of the
Okay.
state. All the rest of them, except for, let's see, 1, 2, all the rest of them but one was here in Little Rock area.
Okay.
So they would have interaction with her.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And did they, being that they were having more interactions, did they pass along anything to you? Anything noteworthy that sticks out now?
Nothing that would cause any alarm. I mean, it was just the same old. You know, they live together. They get into it. Nothing physical like days gone by, but you know, same old.
Okay. Did your mother then, as best as you can tell, fully recover from those injuries? Or did she have some lingering problems because of them?
Well, I would imagine that she had and was going to suffer from lingering issues, broken leg, pelvis.
Yeah.
But you know, December 12th, 86, the last time that I saw her or spoke to her, so I never really got any follow-up information, you know, from her. It was always secondhand from one of the other siblings.
Okay.
But she was still on crutches and still in a walking cast or walking boot in order for her to navigate and get around.
All right. As far as your father goes, of course, he gets shot in 1975. Maybe a mere shadow of his former self. But did he end up going back to work? Did he go back to doing whatever he was doing? Was he able to do that?
No, he never returned back to the construction trade at all. In fact, he was required to go to a dialysis center for a long time. He had to go every day because both kidneys had failed, and ultimately they were able to get one kidney working, and he had to go multiple times a week for dialysis. So he was pretty much handicapped for the rest of his life.
Okay.
And he never returned to the construction world.
Okay. Let's now move up to March 4th, 1987, which once again is the official date. But I have to ask you, Dave, once again, being that I know you know a lot about missing persons cases, you know, doing just of course, all of your other, you know, work besides your own personal experience here, but all of the work you do. Is March 4th, 1987 a very firm date? Or would you say that possibly her disappearance date is a different one? Of course, considering it doesn't seem like a lot of people were keeping in contact with her, doesn't have a phone, etc. How firm is that March 4th date?
Well, I received a call Saturday, March the 7th of 1987.
Okay.
From a sibling, my sister, and her question was this: David, have you seen Mama? I said, well, haven't seen her since December when she came back home. Why? Well, Daddy, that's what she called my father. Okay. Daddy came out and said that he hasn't seen her for 3 days. Okay, so that's like basic math. You know, it's March the 7th, 3 days. That'd be March the 4th. And so is that a solid date? I really don't know, because based on what I know about him and what he's capable of doing and all the lies he's able to share and those he did share, she could have disappeared earlier, but I go with March the 4th because that's the math, the simple math, and how it figures works out.
Okay. Because once again, given the way you've, of course, described all of this to this point, they seem like a very isolated couple. Yes. And, of course, you even admit, not blaming you, I completely understand, you had not talked to her, seen her since December. And given that they don't have a phone, on and on and on, the listeners and myself realize this seems like a situation where the disappearance date could have a wide range, especially when if we're to consider that your father caused your mother's disappearance, then the range gets very, very wide, and that's why I'm asking about March 4th. So that is how March 4th came to be, is because of what your sister on March 7th said, that what your father said. So I'll ask you this, as far as people you trust, who was the last person to see or talk to your mother before March 4th? Who was it? Once again, of course your father wouldn't count because I know you don't trust him. So who would be the last person that you trust who saw or talked to your mother? Can we even say?
Well, it's hard to really put a finger on that. Who may have been the last person other than him to ever or last see her?
Right.
I understand that at some point in time before her official disappearance, she appeared out at my sister's home. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the circumstances, what was going on or anything like that, but there is conversation that has come forward in years past from my sister's daughter, my niece, saying that she remembers grandmother coming to their home on a rainy day in and around this particular time, which would have been before she disappeared. Mm-hmm. So who else? It's really hard for me to say as a matter of fact, because I wasn't here. Okay. And the other siblings should have, I'll use that word, should have been in contact because they lived right here. But were they? Did they? I don't know.
I guess maybe we might speak, did your parents ever go to church? Who did the food shopping in the family? Something like that, where one of them might have appeared, in public somewhere. Your mother might have appeared in public somewhere. Once again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a family member, but maybe a priest or somebody like that who says, oh yeah, I remember she was at, I don't know your religion, but you know what I mean? Something like that.
Mom, listen, all of our growing up life, Mom tried to do the right thing at all times, and that was, in my opinion, she tried to keep us in church. Yeah. And that was a very volatile part of life. And what I mean by that is it was like the existence of light and darkness, good and evil. Yeah. Every time she would take us to church growing up, I remember this so vividly, is he would cuss God like you would never have heard before in your life, and then cuss her. It's like it was as if the devil himself was right there. So it was a constant battle between, in my opinion, good and evil in our home. And everything she tried to create, he did his best to destroy or eliminate that. Yeah. As far as going to and from the store, grocery shopping or whatever, that was all Mom. She always did that. That was, and he would say, that's your job. Go to the store. Well, that's just the generation thing that existed back there, that male chauvinistic attitude that he had. Hey, you're the woman, do it. Right.
All right, so I guess what we're saying here is we don't have any outside confirmation of anybody else saying Well, I remember seeing her on March 1st or March
No,
2nd or February 28th or something like that.
no, I do not have anything.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that would put her in a particular place.
All right. So what, of course, like you said, on March 7th, your father drives up to your sister's place. I'm guessing that had to be odd, beyond odd, beyond odd. I'm guessing that's not something he usually did.
No, no,
Right.
he rarely ever went out there.
Right. But on that particular day, he shows up, and what is the story? What story did he actually ask? Have you seen your mother? Of course, your sister hasn't. But what does he say happened on March 4th?
What he says is this, and his story is that she got in a taxi cab and left the home. Well, what caused that to happen, if it did, was my question. I never got an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was investigated by the local law enforcement that actually has the official case on Mom. And in making contact with the company, they were able to prove that never happened.
Yeah, I can't imagine Fayetteville has too many This isn't New York City. How many taxi companies can there be in the Fayetteville area? Not very many.
Well, now keep in mind she's in Little Rock.
Little Rock. I'm sorry, Little Rock.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's fine. Well, there was yellow cab company and black and white cab company. I think one other, but yellow and black and white were owned by the same entity, one organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so even back then, listen, they didn't have, and your listeners will understand this, I'm sure, but back then it was kind of hands-on, if you will, handwritten notes. They would type records, and
right.
yes, but they had radios, but it's way before cell phone and this and that
for sure
time that we have today. But records indicated that there was no taxi dispatched to the home. There was never anything in their records that indicated that taxi that he said picked her up was flagged down on the streets or anything of that nature. He claimed that she got in a taxi and drove off. Well, that was proven not to be a fact.
And just the way you, once again, I understand that you weren't around her much. Or your siblings maybe weren't around her. Did your mother, of course, you've already said your mother was perfectly capable. They had a vehicle she could drive, right?
My father had a car. Whether or not he really let her drive it, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Not being down here really handicapped me as far as having firsthand knowledge of much of anything. Everything I got was secondhand or sometimes third. It's very unfortunate because things change from one person to the next in conversation, unfortunately.
Right.
So I don't know that he would have allowed her to drive his car, because keep in mind now, I suspect she would have still been on crutches due to the horrific injury that she suffered just 5-6 months previous.
Wow, she would. You think that she was still on crutches 6 months later?
I do.
Wow.
I absolutely do.
Okay.
I mean, she was just
4 months later.
She was a very soft, delicate person, and I just have a feeling in my gut that she would have still been on the crutches in some form. Now, still wearing a walking boot or cast, maybe not so much that, but I do feel she would have been dependent on the crutches.
Okay. So I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it was common for her to ever use a taxi in the Little Rock area to go anywhere? Did you let
Yes.
It was?
Yes.
All right.
It was. I mean, especially back in the day when he used to physically beat her.
Right.
She would escape the home, and maybe she sees a taxi cab and she would flag him down, and they'd pick her up and take her out of harm's way. Maybe it was the city bus would be running through the area, do the same thing. There are some storylines out there that are not necessarily accurate that I've tried to correct over the years, and I finally stopped because you just can't get it all removed, especially on the internet.
I know.
Concerning her travels.
Yeah.
And she did travel on the bus quite often, but there was a reason. The reason was to flee for survival. She would get on a bus to go here, there, to recuperate. It's not so much that she traveled out of luxury or liking it. It was, I've got to escape. Well, a lot of people have twisted that over the years and said, well, she loved to travel here and there. And it's not so much the truth. It was survival that would kick in.
Okay.
So,
I guess what we're establishing here is it was not odd for her to use a taxi or the bus to get somewhere because she wasn't allowed to use the car. But what you're also saying is at least on March 4th or around that date, nobody could find any records that anybody ever actually picked her up that day.
That's correct. There were no records indicated that a bus, a taxi, or anybody else, personal vehicle, came and picked her up.
Goes out to your sisters, tells her that story. Of course, then you find out about it. Did somebody file a missing persons report? What went on?
Well, no, he did not. My sister went down and attempted to file a missing persons report. And here, back in the day, they being law enforcement, were very reluctant in some situations to actually create a missing persons report at that time. What they wanted you to do was wait. Let's give them 24 to 48 hours and they'll come back.
Right.
That's what they said. Well, 6 months. 6 months is when they officially created Mom's missing persons case file. 6 months after she disappeared, supposedly March the 4th of 1987.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
yep.
Now they came out and visited with my father and, of course, heard what he had to tell them, and they believed it. She does this all the time. She runs off. She goes here. She goes there. Well, you know, they basically, he poured, and I say this a lot, he poured them a glass of his Kool-Aid, and they drank
and then they drank
it.
Okay. When this all happened, what did your mother's biological family, her siblings, have to say about, who alerted them to that she was missing? I mean, were her parents still alive at the time? Do you know anything about that part of it?
Her parents were gone.
Okay.
She still had a sibling, older sister, and she was alerted and brought to this attention by my sister that Mom was missing. So that's how she came about knowing that Mom was missing. And it was really no big effort out of their part as far as trying to search or anything like that. It was like, well, she'll come back. They kind of believed what he said. She does it all the time. And yes, she did come and go from their home frequently, especially after he would beat her, seeking refuge, seeking a place to stay for a few days to recuperate. So they were aware of it, especially toward the end, before the shooting took place. She would go to their home on occasion, but of course they didn't want to get involved in it because he had made threats to them.
Yep. All right, so they knew that your father was a nasty SOB, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They knew it.
All right.
And I believe they believed his threat to be true.
Yeah. Why not? I can understand that. Absolutely. So I have to ask, given that, all right, so she goes missing, police don't get involved, report's not filed for 6 months later and everything else. In your opinion, once you heard about your mother being missing, your siblings hear about her being missing, her family finds out that she went missing, was it pretty much a universal belief? Once again, we don't do theories on Unfound, but it was pretty much a belief that your father caused her disappearance?
It has always been my belief that he was the one caused her disappearance.
Okay.
Indirectly or directly. Now, explain that a little bit. The fact that he was the physical specimen he was at the time she disappeared, he was not what he used to be prior to the shooting, and he could have, and I use that term, he could have caused her to disappear, but there's a couple of ways in which he would have had to do it. If he physically did something there at the home and did her in whatever way, he would have had to have assistance to help get her out and do something with her. Or he could have convinced her to get in his car and go somewhere, and then he could have did her in somewhere else by himself.
Right.
But he's always been my number one suspect on the list. Because of what I know about him and what I know he has done.
I don't think anybody doubts any of that at all. So I have to ask you some questions. So as far as the property was certain. I don't even know how big was the property that your parents lived on?
Actually, and a lot of people don't know this, they actually lived in a mobile home.
Okay.
I'm not bashing mobile homes. Lived in one myself. We all live where we got to live, but. So it was in a rather small area, meaning I could kick a shoe off and hit the neighbor's mobile home.
Wow.
They were close.
Okay.
So, if something happened right there at that home, the neighbors would have been more likely to have witnessed.
Right.
So, which leads me to believe that he probably, if he did something there, he did it at night and had somebody to help him get her out under the cover of darkness, or he took her somewhere.
Okay. All right. So no chance. Once again, as you would probably guess, once again, you have a lot of experience too, Dave. We do talk about disappearances where people have like 100 acres, and most of it's woods, and you start thinking, well, how am I going to go search all of this? This is not one of those situations.
Not really, it's not. Although local law enforcement brought out some dogs, but listen, there are certain type of training that the dogs have to go through. You cannot bring, and I'm not saying this actually happened, I'm just, what's my opinion, you cannot bring a narcotic dog out to try to track a human being. You cannot, you got to have a specialized dog.
Yep. Yes.
Now, whether or not they did a proper search of the properties, I wasn't there when it supposedly happened, so I didn't witness it. But I heard that they did bring out dogs. They walked around. They didn't see any signs of any violence, any disturbance or anything like that. So they just said, well, we must believe his story, and that's what they did. She got in a taxi and left.
And you said that those neighbors are living right next door. I'm guessing some of the neighbors probably were afraid of your father as well, given his reputation.
Honestly, never spoke to any of the neighbors personally, but I did speak to the man that owned the properties, who lived probably 50 yards or so in a home on the property, and he told me that they were always fussing and fighting over there. So if he heard it and witnessed it, I'm sure the others did as well.
All right, and I realize we're going back almost 40 years, but were there any stories that the neighbors said of them leaving and them seeing like your mother around, Patsy around, then all of a sudden not seeing her around, and any that the two of them left and he only came back? Any stories like that?
Nothing at all. In fact, I finally tracked down the previous owner of that properties. It took a big effort. I finally found him. He had actually sold his property and moved away to another location. I tracked him down, showed up unannounced, and actually in 2016 is when I spoke with him. Now, this is a long time out, but he tells me, David, he said, I know there were problems in the household, and they fussed and fought, and it was not good. He said, but I will tell you this, you are the only person that has ever questioned me about your mother's disappearance.
Wow.
Never, ever before has anybody asked me about it.
Oh,
well, that just baffles me that if a proper investigation had been done,
yeah.
you would think they'd walk across the yard, knock on the door, and say, Mr. Property Owner, what can you tell us about this situation over here, if anything? But it never happened.
Never did. Okay, so we only have your father, her, I guess technically Patsy's ex-husband, even though they're still living together and all of that. That, she got in a taxi, left. Of course, no taxi driver could be tracked down. No records of that. Nobody saw a taxi pull in on that day or any other to pick her up. And we also have to remember that it took him 3 days to come to your sister's. Why didn't he come over like the next day or something? So it all looks pretty bad for him. Dare I ask, did you ever speak to your father one-on-one about this?
I did, and he said he stuck to that story where she got in a cab and left, and he wouldn't vary from it. He wouldn't allow you to really carry on the conversation because that's the way he was. He wanted to control everything, and what he said is how it was. So, according to him, she got in the cab and left, and he wasn't going to talk about it.
Okay. You also mentioned one of the big things also is that she did take a taxi to go off and start a new life somewhere, is that her Social Security checks were never, I read that they were never picked up. She was getting Social Security. None of them ever picked up. None of them ever cashed. I have to ask, did your father ever tried to commit, I guess what we would call Social Security fraud by trying to cash them? Any underhanded things going on there?
Well, let me share some stuff to lead up to that real quickly. Mom depended on the Social Security disability check that she received every month. Was not a lot of money, but it's what she knew she had coming in every month. Now, if she was in a different location, let's just say she was at my home, and I'll use that because I know it happened. When she's up at my home recovering in Fayetteville from her horrific accident being hit by a drunk driver, she reached out to the postmaster down here in Little Rock. Now, this is illegal, what he did, but they can't prosecute somebody that's already deceased. So I personally interviewed him. His name is James. I won't say his last name.
Okay.
And here's what would happen. Mom would write Mr. James a letter. I'm here, I'm there, I'm wherever. When my check shows up, could you be so kind to forward that to me? Thank you very much, Patsy D. Clark. Well, I would see her mail come in, and it was her check, and we'd go to the bank, and she'd cash it, she'd have some money. So I know it happened firsthand, witnessed it. I also interviewed Mr. James. Drove down here from Fayetteville one day and talked with him, and he said, David, he said, I know your mother. She was a friend of mine. I know the situation, and it was horrific. So I knew she depended on that little Social Security check every month. And yes, I did what I did because I knew the situation. He said, now I was going against the rules and regulations. In fact, he said, had they found out, I could have been terminated. I said, well, thank you, Mr. James, for what you did. I appreciate it. Now, here's the thing. That would leave a paper trail every time Mom cashed a check. Every time anybody cashes a Social Security check.
Yeah.
There's a paper trail. Maybe electronically today, but back then it was a paper trail, legitimate paper trail. Now, Mom disappears supposedly March the 4th, and that check is cashed, but there's something peculiar that happens there, and that is this. Local law enforcement, and let me clarify something. When I speak of them, law enforcement, I'm not bashing them at all.
You just tell the truth, Dave. Just tell the truth. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing.
I'm a realist. I call it like I see it.
Right.
Okay. In the investigation with law enforcement, they contact Social Security Administration and they ask a question, which they should have. And the question is this: do you show any activity in the benefit file of Patsy D. Clark, Social Security, birth date, whatever? And the answer to that question is very simple: no. Okay, thank you very much. Click. So they've documented that in their report. And when I get the copy of that and I read, I said, well, you did ask the question right. Well, what do you mean by that, they say? I said, well, here's what you should have asked. What is the last activity you show in the system for Patsy D. Clark? Mm-hmm. Well, there was none. No, I said, you didn't ask the question correct. And at this point in time in this investigation, I was about to get fed up with it because there was no activity. And I've got some reasons I can share if you want me to, what they told me those were, but their question was not sufficient. Their answer was sufficient to their insufficient question, but here's what I did is I actually contacted Social Security. And now up until this point, I had been granted by the courts of Washington County, Arkansas, as administrator and executor of her estate, which was really nothing at all. I mean, she had nothing. Mm-hmm. But in order to handle legal documentation of any kind, I was granted this by a judge in Washington County. So once I proved who I was to the Social Security Administration, they were willing to speak with me. What is your question, they would ask. And I said, here's my question. What is the last activity that you show in the system on my mother? Well, let me see. So they type in their little computer, and they said, well, the month of March was cash. April, May, and June were also cash. That's the last check that we showed to be cash. Wait.
Huh.
Mom disappeared in March.
Right.
April, May, and June, you must be looking at somebody else's file. Mm-hmm. No, Patsy D. Clark, Social Security, blah, 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 blah. It's your mom we're talking about. So here's the deal. Someone got April, May, and June's checks and cashed them.
Imagine
now,
that.
Mom's gone. There is no evidence that she's anywhere. There's no paper trails. There's no phone calls. Hey, David. Hey, sister. Hey, brothers, or whatever. I'm here or there. Just reaching out, letting you know where I'm at. Nothing like that. It's as if her existence ceased at that point in time. Now, even back then, things would have continued. Her Social Security checks would have continued to leave a trail where they were cashed. Also, her Medicaid, Medicare, her health benefits, that ceased to exist. And anytime and every time she went to a physician of any kind, that's how it was financially handled. Yeah. So everything stopped except for those 3 Social Security checks being cashed. Well, that led me to my investigation as who cashed them. We've got to obtain records of those checks. Social Security Administration directed me to the U.S. Treasury in Virginia, gave me the individual contact. I reached out. We developed a rapport and talked quite often, daily, to be back for a period of time. And here was my question. What do I have to do to obtain copies of these 3 checks? I want to see 2 things. Where it was cashed, and I want to see the signature on the back of it. Now, keep in mind, we're at 2017, I believe.
Wow, this is all these years later, yes.
Yes. So the young man that I'm dealing with says, well, protocol is this. After 10 years, or at 10 years, all documentation that are that old are destroyed. Oh, wow. Man, we're 23 years out. Mm-hmm. We've kind of missed that ship. It sailed 13 years ago.
Right.
So so it's all I could do to just to keep my attitude in a level of being calm about this investigation, because had that question been asked early on when they contacted Social Security and said, do you show, what's the last activity you show on Patsy D. Clark's benefit? They would have told them that exact information they told me. April, May, June. Okay, they could have requested at that time. They could have obtained those documents. They could have looked at where they were cashed. they could have gone back and got the videos of those individuals who cashed or individual, and then they could have looked on the back, and we could have identified them. I can identify my suspect in a matter of a second by looking at the signature.
Yep.
If it's my father.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense.
So here we are 23 years out, 13 years after the fact of documents protocol says to be destroyed. Well, and I worked for months trying to absolute make sure. Listen, I'll fly to Virginia. I personally will go down in the archives basement. I will dig through. Well, there's nothing down there you're going to find. They've been destroyed. So here we are. I mean, we could have solved this case, I believe, early into it.
Yep.
I really do.
I agree.
June's cashed. July, August, September, October, and November. Those checks pile up in Mom's in her mailbox. Well, Mr. James said, David, by law, I have to return those to Social Security. And at that point in time, her benefits were stopped. Mm-hmm. And another check has never been cut because lack of activity.
But the thing is, I guess without, of course, all this documentation is gone, but I guess what we're also saying here is those checks for April, May, and June most likely were mailed to her address in Little Rock.
That's exactly where they were mailed, to her address in Little Rock. Now, who had access to that besides Mom?
We know who.
My father had access to it.
Right.
He sure did.
Right.
So.
And of course, he never. Of course, I'm guessing by the time you got all this, your father is deceased, correct?
That's correct. He passed away in 1988, 1 year after the fact that Mom disappeared.
Wow. Okay, so. Yep, he's long gone. Can't ask him about these things. Nobody had a chance to ask him about these things because this didn't pop up until later.
Right.
Nobody looked into this at the time in 1987 or 1988. Wow.
No, they did not.
Okay.
They asked a simple question. They got a simple answer. It was the wrong question that they asked.
Okay. Yeah. Did your father ever, of course, we know it looks very suspicious here, but did he ever offer up his own theory to anybody regarding where his ex-wife, your mother, Patsy, went?
Concerning the hypothetical taxi trip, all he would ever say was, she just got in a cab and left. Well, now that's been disproved by multiple sources.
Yeah.
The law enforcement agency here that has the case and my own investigation has confirmed what they found out, that it never happened. Mm-hmm. And now I will say this, that from the time she disappeared, was reported missing, to the day he died, his story changed 2 more times.
Well, what were those? Please tell us what those stories were.
The second story, after the cab story kind of died out, if you will, and people started believing that, it was, she ran off with a boyfriend. Yeah. That was his second tape.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't blame her for doing that at all.
No.
In fact, hey, I'll buy him gas. Come get her.
Yeah.
Take her from me, please. Well, that was the second story. Who was it? Well, I don't know. Well, what was he driving? I really don't remember.
Yeah.
You know, so here he is pouring his Kool-Aid into everybody's glass that wanted some of it. Here, believe this story. Believe that story. So that one didn't go over very well. The third one was this. She just walked away. Oh, okay. Well, earlier I was explaining to everyone about the situation the day that I put her on a Greyhound bus, December 12th of 1986 in Fayetteville, Arkansas, en route to come back to Little Rock, her home. How that may have looked, how it appeared in her animation trying to get on the bus, up the steps with crutches and a walking boot, and then the driver having to assist her up into the bus, get her to her seat, all the other passengers watching this and taking note. So I truly believe that had she just walked away, she would have still been on the crutches, hobbling to a point where it would have. Now you're driving down the road and you see a person on crutches and they're kind of gimped up or hobbling, if you will. It's going to catch your attention. Somebody's going to make note of that. Well, nobody, up and down that road, nobody reported ever seeing that happen. Now, that road, Sunset Lane that they lived off of, had no sidewalks. You basically walked on the shoulder of the road.
Yeah.
So, there we are, story number 3. And I don't believe it.
Right. I don't think anybody does. And it should be noted that this control freak that was your father, he just let her go? You know what I mean? He doesn't sound like the type of guy that would just allow her to go. I mean, he controlled everything that she did. And then it doesn't sound to me like he did anything to try to find her either.
He did not try to stop her, and he put zero effort into trying to find her.
Totally against the way he had lived his life to that point.
Absolutely.
And how he treated her.
It's as if, why should I look? I know she's gone and never coming back. That was his attitude. Yeah. He didn't so much say it, it was his attitude. Well, I know what happened.
Right. You, of course, have had a lot of... maybe I should ask you this. What did he do with his life after? Of course, we suspect he cashed a few of those checks, but he died the very next year. But what did he do for that next year, being that your mother wasn't around? What did he do with his time and everything?
Okay. The way I understand is one of my siblings, next to the oldest brother, had a business, an upholstery business in West Little Rock, and he allowed my father to come over there and assist him in his shop. I believe probably taking furniture apart, the old upholsteries, and maybe working on the finish of woods and stuff like that. But just to give him something to do and maybe earn him a little money. Best of my understanding, that's what happened. That's what they did quite often. Was that brother interacted with him in his shop in West Little Rock.
Okay. And dare I say, did your brother ever ask him, in so many words, hey, what happened to Mom? Try to get information out of him, or what do you think?
I doubt that he really had much conversation because I do believe this. I do believe that some of my siblings know what happened. That's just, you get a gut feeling based on what they're sharing, what they're not sharing, what they should know, in my opinion, based on the fact that they were here and there was interaction. I believe that this particular brother knows more than he's ever told authorities or me. And here's the attitude from him to me and everyone else regarding Mom's case. I don't want anything to do with it. Now, this is a person that, because of her, you're alive. Because of her, the rest of us are here today. Now, life was not a bowl of cherries. Life was not Christmas every day. In fact, it was hardly ever Christmas. But she did what she could to the best of her ability, based on what she had to use. And that was to make a home out of whatever, wherever we lived.
Right.
And I think she did a wonderful job. But this sibling had a different outlook, and he wanted nothing to do with her case. Would never volunteer to become involved, but he spent time every day basically with my father, the one that is my number one suspect.
Mm-hmm.
There had to be conversation of some sort. I truly believe that they interacted as far as what happened. Was he involved physically in the disappearance of my mother, the sibling I'm referring to? I don't know.
Wow.
But I do believe he has knowledge of what happened.
So wow, I'm not sure I saw this coming. So what you're saying is, first of all, that all of the children are not in agreement about all of this. There's a little bit of a different group here. There's kind of you, and then you have this other brother. Kind of, not everybody is lockstep with all of this.
That's correct, and
Wow.
that just, try to wrap your mind around that.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. Why would you not? Because I guarantee you, and if it was me, him, or one of the others that was missing, I absolutely guarantee with everything I've got that Mom would go to the ends of the earth trying to find us.
That's what mothers do.
Now, absolutely. That's what moms do. Now, like I said, life was not a bowl of cherries every day growing up, but you know what? She's not the one that created the war zone atmosphere that we grew up in. It was the father. But yet, this sibling and another sided with him as if she was the bad person. And it just,
Yeah.
what? You're going to have to explain that. Draw me a picture or something, try to help me understand that one, because how is the victim the bad person? The one that gets her teeth knocked out, her nose broken, her eyes black, her hair pulled out, her ribs cracked, broke. How is that person the bad guy? So I missed something somewhere in my growing up in that household, and for the life of me, I can't figure out what did I miss that now puts him as the victim.
Right. I get you.
I
have to ask this. Are you firm in this belief to the point that you think that this other brother knows exactly where your mother is? I mean, are you that sure to that extent?
I have my suspicions that if he knows what happened, he should know where she's at. I'll say it that way.
Wow.
Now he's been reluctantly interviewed by local law enforcement. After I summoned them to go out and interview him after an encounter that he and I had in 2017. I sent the detectives out there to talk to him and his wife. He would not allow them to speak with her. He was, let me just say it this way, and this is as kind as I can say it. He is his father's son. He was, in all appearance sake, he is one and almost the same as far as the attitudes, the way he controls, the way he deals with people. And that was when they showed up, they being the detectives, to speak to him about Mom's case, how he treated and responded to them. You're not going to speak to her, and I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I'm not going to discuss it. So he basically shut that investigation down quick. And why would you not? I mean, the relationship may have not been a bed of roses between him and her all his life, but why would you turn your back and walk away in the search for somebody that gave you life? It's just baffling today as it has always been to me. Why? I can't get an answer to that, and I can't figure it out. Why would any of them not get on board with me to help find our mother? Now, I was there. I know I know the horrific life that we all lived in, but here's the thing: I'm no one's victim. I live life today best I possibly can and enjoy it the best I possibly can. But I have a mission in life, and I feel they do too, but they've turned their back on it, and that is this: find mom. Find the one that gave you life.
What is the, if you could say, what is the exact split between you and your siblings? 3 on one side, 3 on the other, 4-2, 5-1. What is it? Maybe some of your siblings aren't alive anymore. Maybe none of my business. But what is the? Are you like alone in this, or do you have some of your other siblings who are with you, or what? If you can say.
Okay, I can say. My oldest sibling, my brother, passed away a few years back. But here it is kind of in a nutshell. I am, out of the sibling group, I am the one and only that is in searching for my mother.
Wow.
It is very frustrating.
Yeah.
It's very sad. And here's what I get from them. Why don't we have a relationship? Why don't we see each other? Why don't we do this or that together? Why? Well, here's the deal. My opinion is this. They have taken and driven a wedge between us because they will not be a part of mom's search. How can you expect me to be a normal brother or brother-sister relationship, sibling relationship, when you refuse to find the one that gave us life? So therein lies the problem, or the wedge, if you will, is because they refuse to get on board with mom's case, there cannot be a normal, if any, relationship between us.
Right.
I just don't see it happening. Now, you get on board with me with this, and things can change real quickly for the better. But until then, they will stay as they are because I've got a mission. I've got to find mom.
How long has this split been going on? Since day one in 1987, or what?
For sure since then, but kind of building, because there was some, if you will, some taking sides like I kind of alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
Because of what she did to him, he's now the victim. Is that it? Well, my goodness. I mean, what did he do to her prior to whatever happened to him? What did he do to provoke, to cause, or instigate? What did he do? See, it's like...
Yeah, she shot him, but that was almost in self-defense.
As far as yes, absolutely. Nobody knows. It's not documented anywhere. I don't have conversations, recordings. I can't bring both of them back and say, hey, what happened in my truck early September of 1975 down around Star City? What happened? Who was doing what to who, or what? Or just out of the blue, did she open up and start firing at him? See, so all of that, what he did to her leading up to that point, in some of them's eyes, is it's all been washed away. It never happened. Now he's the victim. Well, no, that's not going to fly with me. Absolutely not.
Right.
So it's very unfortunate. I will say that. I wish that things were normal.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, I do. But
yeah, I'm sure you do.
I don't see it happening until certain things or certain people change some things.
You want to get along with them, but there's only one way that can happen.
As far as I'm concerned, yes, only one way can happen.
Okay.
Come to grips with what happened. Get on board with the search. Let's find her. The rest of the stuff, I think, can be worked out. But until that wedge that they drove between us is removed, and it can only be removed by one, and that is them. I can't remove it. I can't.
Okay. Do you have an idea regarding if your father did this, of a particular area that he was maybe used to go hunting there or fishing there or something? Do you have an area in mind that if I am more inclined to believe with you that if he did do this, that he did take her somewhere under some guise of something, some story, Is there like an area that you have in mind that you continue to go to look at, to search, or not?
Uh, not particular one spot. We have searched in the 36 plus years. We have searched many physical locations around the central Arkansas area. Tips and clues have come in, and as far as a place that he would frequent, I don't know of any, because he was not an outdoors person, meaning he didn't fish, he didn't hunt, and so I don't know of any place that he would go to in that regard. So like I said, we've searched many properties, and following up on tips and leads over the 36 plus years. I wish there was a place that he would frequent, that it would come to mind, that was documented, but
because you know with your experience that a lot of these people who do these types of things, men and I guess a few women, the remains do end up being in areas where these people find it even on their own property or in places that they think that they can protect, or they know the area very well, things like that. You know all about that. That's why I'm asking.
Right, and I went in our investigations. It has taken us to complete strangers' properties, multiple properties, and it has taken us to properties and locations that he was associated in years past through his business dealings, the trade, and so many others. But nothing, no place that he just frequented by himself that was documented.
Okay. How did your father die that next year? What happened?
He was, early on I spoke of his condition as far as his kidneys, and toward the end of his life, he was having to go like one time a week to the dialysis center there in Little Rock and have his blood cleansed. And the way I understand it, the reports are that he had a massive heart attack while on the at the center.
Wow, right there. He had it right there.
So that's basically where he ended life, right there, was while he was going through the filtration system of the blood at the dialysis center.
I have to ask, being that your siblings are not on board with what you're doing, how about your mother's family? How do they feel about all this?
Well, my mom's family, they're all gone as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of them here.
Yeah.
None of them really ever got involved like I would have liked. But I think that has to do with a lot of my father's ways of dealing with them and threats made in years past. They may have been concerned for their own safety, welfare, not only for them, but their family, whether it be their spouse or anyone else living at their home. So I think that could have kept a lot of people from getting involved.
Wow. All right. Thank you for all of that, Dave. Let's now move to the work. Of course, because of your mother's disappearance, I'm sure is one of the reasons you got. I mean, you don't have to necessarily have a missing person in your family to get involved. Of course, I do Unfound. I don't have anybody missing in my family. But when did this start to become more than just about your mother?
Okay. About 7 years ago, while visiting with a very good friend of mine today, he was trying to assist me with Mom's case, and as far as direction, the fact that he was in law enforcement, and many others, mutual friends that we both have still today, that are in different aspects of this unfortunate world that we're in today, is about 7 years ago, the plan was made to create a private investigation agency, which caught my attention. Was all for that, because if that's going to allow myself, if that's going to allow us to do more for not just Mom's case, but for other missing persons, I'm in. Count me in, sign me up, let's get started. So we created a private investigation agency here in Little Rock, very unique in certain ways, and mainly it's this: we work nonprofit, pro bono. We do not charge any family for what we do in investigating the case of their missing loved one. Now, most agencies are not that way. They are for profit. I get that. I understand.
Yeah.
But we've decided to specialize in this way. In what we do for the family, we're not going to charge you. We're not even going to have conversation about finances. We're not going there. So we're going to do it for one reason only, and that is, in my opinion, for the right reason. We're going to help find your missing loved one best we can. We're going to work it the best to our abilities, and hopefully it will have a positive effect on the case. Each case is the same, but each case is so different.
Yeah, that's true.
I would not wish this 36 and a half, nearly 40-year journey on anybody. Absolutely no one. I mean, someone I detest today, I would not wish this on them, because the not knowing absolutely just eats at you daily, every hour, every minute. You know, and many do not survive this, meaning family structures, they don't make it. They break apart. They fall this way or that way. Marriages, they break apart. You know, people pass away not knowing what happened to their loved one. So this is a very horrific part of life that we have, that exists. And it's not like nearly 40 years ago, on March the 7th, I got up in 1987 on a Saturday and said, you know, cartoons are over. I don't have much to do the rest of the day. I think I'm going to jump on the missing person bus and ride that for 40 years, see what that's like. Didn't do it. I got the phone call like all the rest of us do, and here we are. We're thrust into this quagmire, and we have to try to figure out how to get out of it, what we got to do. So that's the beginning of it is a private investigation agency. Of course, I've always had a desire to help others in this same unfortunate situation. And myself and two others have also created an awareness nonprofit here in Little Rock, Arkansas. Arkansas Missing Come Home is our nonprofit name. We are an Arkansas accredited 501c3 nonprofit, and awareness is what we do. We specialize in that. And our efforts will cover 100% of all cases in the state of Arkansas, which are ever changing, always changing. But the way we've got it designed and laid out is we will, and have divided the state into districts, which are comprised of certain counties, which also have certain number of cases in each county. And we go and work from oldest case to current, basically in reverse numerical order, because this reason. Mom's case and all the other cases that are cold cases, they don't get the light of day, Ed.
Yeah.
You never hear about them. You never see about them.
I know.
On any media, radio, television, newsprint, you don't see or hear about them. So we're going to bring those cases to light, and hopefully to make a positive difference in the case. We work with a lot of the state agencies here in Arkansas in trying to keep the data correct, because the data that we have to go on is only as good as the one that is putting it in the system, meaning law enforcement that uploads it. If the data is not accurate, it goes in the system and it's not accurate. So therefore, we've got to absolutely go through each and every case before we can bring it to the forefront and share about it, because we're not going to share some inadequate information about any person. You know.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm kind of putting you on the spot. It's maybe a hard question to answer, and it's okay if you want to take a few seconds to think about it. And of course, I can edit out any pause that you take here. So take your time. What do you think, given that you've been living with this for almost 40 years, and not only that, you're now immersed in it, dealing with other missing persons, talking with other families, helping them. What do you think is the one common misconception that the public has about disappearances?
Well, there are multiple things that happen or can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we have a horrific problem with human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
That plays a large part of our missing person cases, unfortunately. And that's not just for children, it's adults as well. I think it tends to lean in the adults category, it tends to lean more toward the female, but children is both male and female. But it's a very horrific problem we have in society, and we're working to help reduce that and eliminate it in time, hopefully. But domestic violence is another thing that leads into this. I know firsthand, been there
right,
and suffered through it, growing up. And also, as an adult, you have a legal right to just grow tired of life and just pack up and move on. You have that right. And unfortunately, law enforcement, they spew that, or they say that more than they should not. Well, now he's of age. He can just pick up and take off, or she can pick up and take off and go and do what they want, start a new life somewhere. Well, they can do that. In fact, Mom could have done that, but here's the thing. We tend to leave paper trails when we leave from here to there. Things surface. We're creatures of habit. We do things, whether we're here or there, that create evidence that we existed there. So all that is just a mixture of the contributors that we could put into the bowl of missing persons. What leads this to happen? One person in law enforcement said this about Mom's case. Well, it's like as if she was just a balloon and she popped and disappeared. Well, we're not balloons. We don't pop and we don't disappear. Something happened. Someone did something, or some horrific accident happened. And that's another thing. A lot of times a horrific accident may happen. Maybe an individual was to travel from point A to point B. They never made it to point B. And if they'll just go back and retrace every path that could have been taken, chances are they'll come up with the individual. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I would answer that question.
Yeah. I know in my own work, I'm going to guess in the work that you do, you have a lot more interaction with law enforcement than I do, because once again, given that I'm really a reporter, I'm in the information business, and we know the police don't like to say a lot, and I'm only interested in talking to people who say things, can tell me information. Right. But I to answer my own question, I asked you a couple minutes ago. I think that of course, I want your opinion on it. The biggest misconception I think the public has is that they think the police know what they're doing. That the police know how to react to disappearances. And I think that I've learned in it, covering over 300 disappearances, is that they don't. And it really doesn't matter if it's a disappearance in 1987 or 1973 or 2015. It all ends up being about the same. And and the reason that is because the police don't get any education on disappearances. They get all sort of forensics and domestic abuse and things like that. But when it comes to disappearances, they get no education whatsoever in any work that they do.
Well, here in Arkansas, we do have some continuing education events that law enforcement, every law enforcement agency in the state should attend. You cannot give me any excuse that legitimately would excuse an agency from not attending and being a part of, because you're correct. Law enforcement, they don't have the experience, so to speak, with dealing with missing person cases like you would want them or you would think they would have. So that's something that is an absolute must, is when an event is available for them to attend, they must attend it, because they don't know how, honestly, they don't know how to handle this. They can handle a burglary. They can handle a homicide that has a victim, a body. They can handle a breaking and entering, a burglary, whatever. They can handle so many other cases and types of crime, because they leave, there's evidence, there's things for them to go on. But in a missing persons case, typically there's nothing other than they were last seen here, they were driving this or whatever. So there's not much for them to go and build a foundation of a case with. So
yeah,
they really don't have the practical experience, just because they're law enforcement, that you would think they would have.
You'd think.
You would think they would, but they don't. And
Yeah.
it's a constant challenge for them to every day that they have the opportunity is to better their education, whether it be book smart or practical hands-on experience in dealing with the case. But here's the thing: is they can also learn from the everyday life from us, the families of the missing.
I agree.
Listen, I've got skin in the game, like unfortunately 516 other families in the state of Arkansas this morning have skin in the game. Come ask me what it's been like, what we've done, and all the other questions that you have. Don't just assume you know, because we're not born with this knowledge. We learn it as we go. And it's a constant struggle, not only for us as family, but for law enforcement as well. And here's the thing: until you find that missing person, until that case is solved, that person is brought home. Fortunately, I would hope that they were found and brought home alive and well. But here's the deal: we have one competitor in a missing person case. It is the clock.
Yep.
Clock waits on no one.
No.
Now, the longer it takes for a missing persons case to be solved, the greater the chances of this happening. And that is the case changing and evolving from a missing persons case to a homicide or a recovery situation. Now, there's some particular things that really need to be key here when a case is created, and the information that needs to be provided to law enforcement. It kind of falls on the shoulders of the reporting persons or family members, and unless they're asked, we the family, we don't know. So education is key. Awareness is key. And when it comes to making a missing persons report, there's some things that you need to do.
Yeah.
All the descriptors of an individual, describe them head to toe, everything you can think of. Photograph. You ever heard that old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words?
Right.
It has never been more true in any of our lives than right here in a missing person case. If I give you a description that's just printed words on a piece of paper, say, Ed, if you'd be so kind, go out and find this person. And then I give just a picture of an individual that's in a photograph, and I give it to someone else that you go find this person. Chances are the person with the photograph is the one that's going to come back with them, not necessarily you, because it's just the way it is. So a photograph is so important in a missing persons case. But unfortunately, our system is lacking, and we have probably at least 1/3 cases that do not have photographs.
It's hard to believe. These days with people carrying cameras around and everything else, it just doesn't seem possible, but it is.
I don't know how and why it's that way, but it is. It's a very sad fact. DNA is another. Be willing to give a DNA profile when you're reporting a missing persons, especially if you're family, because they need, unfortunately, in an identification situation, if they've recovered remains and the body does not have identification on it, driver's license, social security, whatever, they're going to go to the DNA profile and attempt to identify the person at that time that way. And if they've got a sibling or a parent or grandfather, grandmother, whatever, DNA in the system as an identifier only. That's the only reason why it's used. That's the only reason why it's taken. There's a myth about, well, I don't want law enforcement to have my DNA. They might try to link me to a crime.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't happen. But leave it to some people to start situations like that. And you know, it really throws up a roadblock for the investigative agencies. Is if they can't get a DNA profile from a family member, then they really struggle with the case. The other thing is fingerprints. Absolutely. If you know that the individual that's missing has got fingerprints somewhere, like on a card, maybe a job requirement that they had to go get a background check or whatever, so they had to create fingerprints, provide those. And that also is very important in identifying a missing person when they're recovered. And one other thing that most people don't think about it is this: footprint. Now, when you're born, years ago, they actually rolled our feet with ink rollers and put them on the paper.
That's
Today
right.
it's electronically scanned, but it still happens. Now, your footprint is as a fingerprint is. It's the same from the day you were born to the day you pass, unless it's been altered in an accident or mutilated for some other reason. It's the same. In fact, in many cases, that's how, because a victim's hands have been removed, accidental or deliberately by those that did them in, trying to prevent the identification of the person, they'll take their hands away. Well, if their feet are there, they can still take a footprint and identify that person based on birth records. So there's so many things that are important when it comes to information in a missing persons case.
When, of course, when your mother went missing in 1987, that was before DNA was really a thing. When did you, I'm guessing it was you, since it doesn't sound like your siblings have been going along with this, when was your family's DNA finally taken?
Okay, 2005. See, this is something most people are not aware of that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Most families have never gone through this before, so they don't know. And I refer to it as innocent ignorance. We're ignorant of the fact of what is needed. Well, we depend on who? We depend on law enforcement to say, hey, by the way, we need a DNA profile. That's who we depend on. But our awareness campaign and others similar to our organization, we're trying to change that. And awareness, we're trying to really push it and get everybody to understand the importance. But as far as the DNA profile, in 2005, my DNA and a sibling's DNA was submitted. And unfortunately, for 5 years, in 2010, I was summoned to a particular laboratory here in Little Rock and sat down with the director. And they said, well, you're going to be upset with us. I said, I doubt that based on what you do to help me in this case. Why? What's going on? Well, we just found it was dated 5 years ago, your DNA profiles that were taken in the cabinet in the storeroom. Oh, they have never been submitted or uploaded.
Oh, my.
Well, Yeah. So as of 2010, they are in the system. Profiles are there, and they are loaded for the purpose of identifying mom when that day comes.
Okay.
So it's very unfortunate, but at least they're there now. And here's the deal: CODIS, the system that checks the DNA profiling, it is a constant, around the clock, 24/7. That's all it does. The system's just checking the profiles.
It's always working.
Nationwide, worldwide, and trying to find a match. And so far, unfortunately, there's not been a match of any victim, any unidentified or any unclaimed remains anywhere in this country that would help us identify mom.
What's next for you and the work you're doing there in Arkansas, Dave? What's on the agenda maybe from now to the end of 2023?
What we're doing every week is we have a live broadcast via Zoom/Facebook and awareness campaign. What we're doing is taking a certain number of cases out of the total case count and investigating the case, building our case file, and then we'll present these cases live to the viewing audience in hopes that what we share will spark memory recall of somebody and will make a positive difference in the case, hopefully to help find the missing. Is one of the big things we're doing. Plus, we attend a lot of missing persons events, not just in Little Rock, but all over the state, hoping to be able to work with each family that needs or wants our assistance so that we can help bring them missing home. Our desires are 100%. Sometimes the end result is not, because it's a work in progress.
Right.
And, each case is the same, but each case is different. And we weren't there. Most of the time the family weren't there. So we have to it's like, listen, Ed, it's like this. I've got a 10,000 piece puzzle before me. I've dumped it out on the table and I've got to put it together. But unfortunately, I do not have the box top with the printed picture on it so that I can look at it and say, well, this piece goes here, or this piece goes there. Every little piece of information that we get, we've got to try it everywhere we possibly can to see if it fits in a case.
Yeah.
So it's a constant. We cannot exclude anything until we can exclude it. So we're constantly busy. In fact, my case pile is just enormous here. Not saying that to be braggadocious. I'm just saying we've got an enormous task ahead of us.
Yeah, even in a state like Arkansas, which is not one of the most populated states in the United States, you still have a lot of missing persons cases. Like you said, over 500.
Yeah, 560. Now, that's what's officially in the system. That's not the numbers.
Probably it's a lot higher than that. Yes, a lot higher. Probably.
Yeah, the numbers probably be pushing 600.
Right. I agree. We for example, with NAMUS, we know that I think there's like 23,000 some people listed in NAMUS. We know that the number in the United States is a lot higher than that.
It's amazing, the number, not in a good way either.
You're right.
It's amazing the number how it varies from state to state. Like Texas, got nearly 3,000 missing persons as we speak. One person is too many to be missing. But the thing is, whether it's 3,000 or one, we've got to search for the missing person. We can't stop till we find them. And a lot of people say, well, why do you do that? You're never going to find them. I hear what they're saying.
Yeah, well, we don't know that.
I discount that and I shut that out as quick as
we don't know
I
that.
possibly can, because, hey, my missing mother matters. Now, she may not have been a Cinderella. She may not have been a perfect person growing up. I'm not judging my own mom, but what I am saying is she matters. No matter what the history of an individual is, whether they're rich or poor, light skin, dark skin, white or blonde headed or red headed, blue eyes or green, where you lived, whether you had money in the bank, whether you were highly educated or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is this, that we find you and bring you home.
Right. Dave, why don't you first give out, if you have a Facebook page, website, anything for your mother's disappearance, and then why don't you also give the information, any social media locations for the work that you're doing. You mentioned this live show that you're doing. Give your mother's information first, and then the other work that you're doing after that.
Okay. Appreciate the opportunity here. My mom's... we have a Facebook page for her, Patsy D. Clark. Not a whole lot of activity on that,
Okay.
but we update it periodically, especially since we've created our nonprofit. It takes a lot of our spare time. We have a email address of Arkansas. Let's run this all together. Arkansas Missing Come Home @gmail.com.
Okay.
Our Facebook page is Arkansas Missing Come Home.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I've got my own private my own private Facebook page, David Clark, and I cover all kinds of missing persons and other issues that we have going on here. And you can reach out and find me there anytime and always on that.
Okay. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit more about this live show? I think it's on Thursday nights. Where can people watch that?
Okay, go on Facebook Live. Of course, look up our page, Arkansas Missing Come Home. Like it, follow it, stay tuned, because we do constantly throughout the day, and I mean throughout the day, upgrading, posting case information, events. So there's where they can find that, is Facebook Live. We'll send out notifications. We create the live broadcast as an event. We send out a notice for that multiple times. We share it quite often throughout the week. And Thursday is the day that we've decided to host this, and it's at 7 Central Time here in Arkansas.
All right.
It's unfortunate that, of course, you're a couple hours ahead of us there in Florida.
An hour ahead, yes.
West Coast,
Yeah.
1 hour, okay. And West Coast is behind us on their time, but it will be posted as a recording, so that if you miss it, you can tune back in and catch each episode. And we're, like I said, we're trying to make a positive difference. It's a very bold statement that we are going to affect and cover every case in the state. But you know what? I'm a very bold person, and I'm willing to back up what I say. I've got skin in the game, and not just for my mother. I care about every missing person case that exists. I may not know many of them. I know a lot of them. And it's not just in Arkansas, but in surrounding states and around this country. There are so many cases that we assist in an advisory standpoint, over the phone, over the computer, whatever, trying to help work cases. So we're busy trying to make a difference. And I wish to God that this didn't exist, but it is here, and we've got to make the best of it.
Right.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone at all. This is, it's not fun.
No, it's not.
It's just not fun.
Dave, do you have any final words before we complete this interview?
Ed, I want to thank you for your time that you set aside to interview cover Mom's case. And I hope this opens up a chapter of awareness for so many listeners that we can come together and solve your missing persons case. I hope in some way by what you hear, maybe not on this podcast segment here, but maybe another one. But don't give up, because I feel that myself, I'm the light that my mom needs to be able to find her way back home. I'm the one that's pushing. So, directing this comment to the members of family that have a missing loved one, you are the light that your missing loved one will use to come home. Don't give up. They're out there somewhere, and they deserve to be found. And like I said, if it was my mom searching for me, I feel that she would search to the ends of the earth
for sure
to find me. All missing matter, no matter who they are.
Dave, thank you for being on this episode of Unfound.
Yeah, thank you so much. I so appreciate your time and all your efforts. You do an amazing work.
I appreciate that.
Look forward to visiting with you again soon.
Sure. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. And that ends part 2 of my September 27th, 2023 interview with Dave Clark, son of Patsy Clark. I thank him for joining me and all of you on this episode. So, there you have it. The first official on-the-record discussion you've ever heard on Unfound, where a family member talks very bluntly about how he isn't just working alone, but that he's working against his family, people who should want a resolution to the disappearance as well. As a person who has 2 biological brothers and a sister of my own, I find the whole thing very difficult to understand. And I think I would say that even if my work wasn't disappearances. My brothers and my sister have certainly had their differences over the years. They are 3 very different people who went on very divergent paths once they got out of college. Yet, I can surely say without a doubt, had their mother gone missing, whether through circumstances similar to Patsy's or ones that are very different, the 3 would have become welded together in trying to figure out what happened. No doubt in my mind. Sure, they might have debated on how to go about solving it, but they would have never argued about whether a resolution should be found or not. So then, why does this happen? Because, as I've stated, what Dave has experienced for almost 40 years is common. Not saying that it is a majority of the situations, but the percentage is high enough, in my estimation, that the topic must be analyzed and understood, and I don't think anybody has done that. So, why? Well, every situation is different. There are people out there who simply don't want the attention. Maybe they don't want people like myself emailing them. Hey, can I talk to you about your missing loved one? Some people are very secret like that. Some people already have too much going on in their lives. Marital problems, money problems, psychological problems. It's all they can do to get through a day, let alone be burdened with anything else. But in both of those explanations, and I could come up with many others, I think you see the common theme. It's all about these family members, their own egos and hang-ups and flaws and self-absorption, and has nothing to do with the missing person. Yet, can we be so sure of this for Patsy's disappearance? I just don't know. To hear Dave tell it, he believes his siblings' lack of interest is something along the lines of actually sympathizing with their father if he killed their mother. Yes, crazy, I know. But could this mean that Bill is not the one and only suspect. If you'd like to hear and read my in-depth analysis for the disappearance of Patsy Clark, please now go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast and sign up to partake in the Unfound blog. Until then, I leave the public theorizing up to you. And that's the program. Right now, while you are in your podcast platform, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever, give Unfound a 5-star review, a thumbs up, whatever that platform allows. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Densel, and you've just finished this episode of Unfound.